Hey guys, what's up? Is your friendly neighborhood UberGoose here. I'm going to talk to you guys today about Artifact. This is going to be just basically a rambly video about Artifact. I have notes, but no script, so I'm going to ramble a lot. And if you don't know anything about Artifact, don't worry, I will answer that soon. But there should be screenshots. I'll do something to get some screenshots up here. There were a bunch of screenshots that came out, thanks to all of the media that was at Valve offices the other day and took a lot of screenshots. There was some video taken as well. Before I get too deep into this, I will implore you, please do check out those media outlets. A couple of them include PC Gamer, PC Games N, and IGN. Those three is where most of the information that I have here was taken from. I believe that Jeff Keighley himself tweeted a few screenshots. You'll probably see those up here. So check out all of their articles. Please do it. Honestly, they did a great job. I'm very happy about the whole situation. Nobody was talking about how this isn't Half-Life 3. So all the journalists did a great job, and everybody seems very interested in Artifact. And please note that a lot of the information that I have here, at least the specific stuff, is thank you to Tim Clark from PC Gamer. Okay, he is the one who wrote a tremendous article. Check out his article. I can't recommend it enough. It has a whole ton of stuff, including the specifics, but that's where most of the specifics are going to come from. Some of them will also be due to me just watching these videos and trying to dissect screenshots to figure out what's going on. So, with all that being said, let us begin to talk about Artifact. So first things first, one thing that wasn't really ever mentioned, it was mentioned a bit in these articles, but I don't think it was given the proper emphasis. Artifact is a game designed by Richard Garfield and published by Valve. And, you know, obviously, Valve themselves are working on it and helping. But as far as design, as far as the design of the game, it is a Richard Garfield game. If you don't know who Richard Garfield is, you know his games. Magic the Gathering is one of those games. He is the grandfather of the modern card game, okay? He basically paved the way for every card game today. I'm serious. Like, he did such a tremendous thing when he made Magic. He hasn't worked on Magic too terribly much since the inception, and probably like Alpha Beta. I'm sure somebody knows better than me, but my understanding is that he basically created the game and didn't want to keep creating it after some point, and he no longer works on it. But the point still stands that he created the base systems used for Magic the Gathering, and of course those influenced card games from that point on. If you don't know, by the way, Magic the Gathering came out in 1993, my birth year. Isn't that great? It's still alive. I mean, not only is it still alive, it's still flourishing. It might even have more players now than its peak back in the 90s. So yeah, it's pretty wild. So yeah, basically Richard Garfield had the idea and brought it to Valve and was like, this could work in, you know, a game universe that already exists and kind of expand on that, you know. And specifically, he likened it to MOBAs because of the 3-lane sort of thing. And so he brought it to Valve. Valve, of course, picked it up, and now it's Artifact, the, quote, Dota card game. Although it's not a Dota card game, or a Dota 2 card game, which Gabe Newell was very explicit in stating. It just is in the Dota universe. So, to clarify on that, Gabe Newell said strictly that it is not a Dota 2 card game. It is a card game that exists in Dota for convenience, and that's it. Right? It just works in the Dota universe, and that's it. There are certain mechanics that are definitely slightly influenced from Dota, but it's not strictly like playing Dota as a card game. It is not free to play. It is more like a Magic the Gathering type model, except digital, which of course Magic the Gathering has Magic Online, which if you know of that, then you know what that means. But yeah, it's more similar to Magic. So when you get a card, it's your card. You just have it, and you have to spend actual money, and then you have your collection, and you can sell cards. And one of the cool things about Magic that is going to be transferred into Artifact is that, and I'll talk about this later, power is not tied to rarity. So when you open a pack, even though, oh, my rare isn't very good, you might have value in the other rarity slots. Unlike something like Hearthstone, where rarity and power are so strictly tied together. Yeah, there are strong commons and stuff like that, but most decks will need like a legendary or two and some epics, and those all cost more because they cost more dust. No such thing in Artifact. There's also, as far as we know, no dust type mechanic. All the cards are acquired by players and will cost actual money. That might turn some people off, but I think it's an overall positive thing because it allows there to actually be an economy. And I've played a lot of Magic the Gathering. I'm used to that sort of thing. No big deal. It's currently in closed beta with a full release planned for later this year. Specifically later this year. Nobody really knows. The implication is probably like quite a bit later, like Q4. But it's very possible that they will do a more open beta in the nearish future where more people will actually be allowed to play. And on top of this, Q1 in 2019, there will be a tournament run for the game that Valve will seed. And they stated $1 million tournament. This could mean either that the winning player gets $1 million, similar to how the International has worked in the past, thus the total prize pool somewhere around 1.6 million. Or it means that the prize pool that Valve is seeding it with is 1 million, and they might allow people to add to that, which, again, I'll get to later. Then there will be a mobile release coming in later in 2019. With all this out of the way, now it's time to actually talk about mechanics. If you watched Gabe Newell's talk, which has been uploaded in full on PC Games N, well, not full, but like 20 minutes of it has been uploaded on PC Games N YouTube. Check it out. Should be a link in the description, all that stuff. I didn't cover anything new, but now let's talk about something that PC Gamer wrote up, which is specifics about the mechanics of the game. This is what people want to see, right? This is what people want to know. So, and a lot of this information, like I said, thank you, Tim Clark, PC Gamer. Did a great job. Awesome write-up. Love the article. So, first things first, the game, you have a 40-card deck. And you are limited to 3 copies of each card in your 40-card deck. And you will have 5 heroes in that, right? I don't know if it's specifically in the deck or, alongside the deck. I'm not entirely certain about that. But there will be 5 heroes total in your, quote, deck, in what you bring into the game. You choose 5 heroes, and the deck size is 40 cards, right? To choose from, you have 280 cards and more, right? 280 plus is how it was written, and then 44 heroes are in the game. And that's not 44 of the 117? How many are in Dota 2? It's not 44 of that. It's 44 heroes. There are a lot of heroes in this game that are not in Dota 2, and apparently they are going to potentially be added to Dota 2 in the future, which is really cool to me. One of the great examples is, I don't know her relation to Axe, but she's part of the same clan as Axe, and she's the same kind of being, I guess, like a red orc, basically. I don't remember what her name is. It's something Khan, same as Axe. So that's a great example of one of the new heroes. And the game, like I said, will start with 44 of them in it, which I'm fine with. I'm cool with that. There's going to be more in the future, I'm sure. So, hell yeah. One of the big core aspects of the game is that there are actually 4 colors. Similar to Magic the Gathering, which has 5 colors. The main difference is that in Magic, color identity most of the time just has to do with the mana that you need to play the card. In Artifact, the color is relevant to the cards you can even play. So every hero has their own color. I would presume that there's probably 11 of each color with the 44 being shipped. Otherwise, 44 is a weird number, right? And so there's green, there's blue, there's red, and there's black. And every color has their own kind of color identity similar to Magic the Gathering, and they get played, and they don't care about color when being played, but the other cards that you have require a hero of the proper color to be played. So if you have a green card, you need to have a green hero to play it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I think that's a very interesting idea. This means that you actually have to have this sort of color identity with your deck, right? You probably don't want to have one hero of each color and then one duplicate color, right? Because if you get unlucky and you have the wrong colors in the wrong places, you might not be able to play the cards that you want to play in the spots that you want to play them. So I think that it's interesting that there's that kind of strategy, and I wouldn't be surprised to see most decks being comprised of 1 color or 2 colors. 3 would be pushing it, but I could see a 3-color deck for sure. The core mechanic of the board is, of course, that there's 3 boards, right? Each lane, more or less. And every turn, you get 2 creeps randomly across the boards. I think they might be on the same lane. I don't remember, but all I know is that it's 2 and they're random. So keep that in mind. And you might be saying, uh-oh, I hear random, card game, what is this? Most people who've played the game and talked about it so far have stated that there is indeed randomness in the game, but it's not the bad kind of randomness. And there is a difference between good and bad, right? Bad would be basically, I'm going to play this card and I don't know the outcome. Good is, here's something that's random, and then figure out what you want to do based on that, right? That's the kind of good random. That's the skill kind of random. And there needs to be a little bit of that. It's a card game after all. So the creeps are random. And then there's 2 every turn. Next, we have the lanes. Or in the lanes, they have towers. Every tower has 40 HP and their own mana. Each lane effectively has its own mana pool, which is very interesting. And the mana pool starts at 3 and increases by 1 every single turn. In order to win the game, you need to destroy 2 out of the 3 total towers, which is very cool. I like that concept a lot. This means that you could theoretically just sack a lane and focus on 2 other lanes and kind of force your opponent to kind of, mess about and probably make mistakes, right? There's probably going to be aggro decks that feed off of that sort of idea. So that's very cool. And the additional mana, I'll go a little bit further into mana in a bit, but just to articulate, every lane has their own mana pool. So when you're in a lane and you play a card, it will cost mana from that lane. I'll talk a bit more in depth about that in a minute. There's one aspect that is pretty cool. So heroes, when they die, they will go to the fountain rather than being, say, destroyed, right? They basically get put on the bench. When a hero gets put on the bench, they can't get instantly redeployed, is what I've read. That might not be entirely accurate, but you have to wait a turn, right? They're in the fountain for like a turn. But there are certain effects that would allow you to deploy them the turn after they die. Which is cool. I think that's a cool idea. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, there's actually an initiative passing similar to Magic the Gathering, but way cooler. Way cooler. Let's see. Did I have notes later? Yeah, we'll talk about it now. So the way that the initiative works is, so basically you play a card, right? And then an opponent can do something. And then they do a thing, you do a thing, they do a thing, you do a thing, etc., right? And if you want to say, okay, let's let this stuff happen, you hit pass initiative without playing a thing. Opponent passes initiative without playing anything, right? And then things happen, right? And then the action phase, basically. What's interesting about that is that when you are the first one to not do anything, when you just pass initiative and your opponent doesn't do anything, you will then retain initiative for the next, quote, turn. There's basically sub-turns that get played. You play the lanes left to right. So you start in the left lane, right? And you're like, okay, I got to do this stuff to make sure combat goes well for me. And then opponent, let's say they have initiative and they're just like, this looks fine to me. Pass, combat happens. You move to the next lane. And your opponent then has initiative to start. Even if you had it to start on the first lane, your opponent, because they passed it initially, gets to kind of keep that. They get that value. So there actually is potential strategy in the fact that, oh, these traits might not be super great, but if I have first play in the next lane, I can make things way better. Say I could play a spell that would kill the green hero in the middle lane, so my opponent wouldn't be able to play green cards in the middle lane, and that could be good. That sort of thing, which is really cool. I think that's awesome. And then after all 3 lanes are played, that's when the turn goes to the shopping phase and the next turn begins. And I'll get to the shopping phase in a minute. In fact, I'll get to it right now. So you get gold from destroying enemy cards. This is the pretty much exact quote, which is spent on items from the item deck. The item deck is also apparently one of the pieces of randomness. Now, I'm not sure how random it is. Based on screenshots, it's really hard to tell how the shop works exactly. I have to imagine the shop is going to work somewhat in a way where like the higher cost cards in the shop deck are added as the turns go on. I don't really know. Maybe the cards that are in the deck are based on the amount of gold you have. They're only, they're cards that are cheaper than the amount of gold you have. I don't really know. All I know is that is another one of the sources of randomness, and that's where you spend gold. Right? And then one of the important aspects of the shop is that the shop, you spend gold and you get these equipments, right? And the equipments cost no mana, as far as I could tell. I don't know if I saw a single equipment that cost mana. And they get equipped to heroes, specifically. And when an equipment is on a hero, it takes up one of their 3 slots, which I can talk about the anatomy of the card in a little bit. So it goes into one of 3 slots, and depending on what the equipment is, it has some sort of effect on the hero. And when the hero dies, they keep the equipment. If you put a blink dagger on Axe and he dies, he still has the blink dagger, just like Dota, which is great. I think that's really, really cool. It allows you to kind of build up this power on your heroes over turns and turns and turns, so you don't have to like keep them alive and try and assemble Voltron like in Magic. I think that's cool. You can assemble Voltron with, you know, them dying. And one of the cool things, this is one of the last things that's taken directly from PC Gamer, there are no hand or board limits. So you're not limited to any number of units on the board. You could have literally 1,000 dudes on a single lane. Unlikely, but you could. And as far as your hand, you never have to discard to hand size. You can have a hand of 30 cards, which is cool. As far as how many cards are drawn every turn, I am not entirely certain, to be honest. It's definitely greater than 1, I think. I watched a video and it wasn't super clear. So I don't know. We'll find out about the card draw. But there's also some spells that draw a card, which is cool, which is actually extra cool. Like, let's say you have a card. I think it's like Poof or whatever. It's basically, the Meepo is on the card. I don't remember the name of it, but it's a 1 energy, 1 mana spell that swaps the position of 2 adjacent units in a single lane and draws you a card, right? And it costs 1 mana. So the cool thing about that is that, you know, you could play it in the first lane as like a combat trick, right? Oh, I've made the combat completely different by swapping these 2 dudes, and I've drawn a card. And that card that you just drew, you could, you know, play that on other lanes, right? You used 1 mana on the left lane, but you still have 3 or more on middle and right. So you could do really cool stuff like that, where like you basically sack a lane to just draw cards. You play spells to get things going, and then play those cards that you've drawn, for example, in the other lanes. So I think there's clearly tremendous depth of strategy. So this is one of the things that I haven't quite seen fully explained yet. If I missed it, please let me know. As far as I can tell, units that have no target, right? So the way that combat works is if 2 units are directly across the river from each other, they will attack each other. Simple. If a unit has no target, it seems like it's random what they're attacking, what target they're actually attacking. It seems that they might roll to hit the tower or roll to hit the furthest, like let's say I have 2 minions off to the left side that have no targets. Sorry, creeps. If I have 2 creeps off to the left side with no targets, and then the leftmost enemy unit is like Luna, it seems that those minions can roll randomly whether or not to hit Luna or the tower. However, it's worth noting, you know what those rolls are as soon as the phase where you can play cards begins. So you can actually play around that, right? You can actively utilize that RNG. It's not the sort of thing where it's like, well, I sure hope this minion attacks Luna, because if it doesn't, I'm dead, right? You don't have to worry about that. You know who's attacking who, and you're good to go. That's another one of the sources of randomness, but again, it's like the controllable randomness where it happens before decisions are made, which is important. And then here I have a note that just says very limited RNG, which, you know, I already mentioned most of the sources, but there are, at least there's one spell that we know of that is random in outcome, right? Random after the decision is made, and that is Eclipse, Luna's ultimate, but it's controllable in a different sort of way. Eclipse, it does damage to a random unit X times, where X is the amount of lucent beams that you've cast in the game up until that point, I think, something like that. So because of this, this means that, oh, Luna's on a lane with 3 dudes. I've played 3 lucent beams. Okay, right? And each Eclipse hit is going to kill a dude. So yes, play that. It kills all 3. Good to go. So again, it's controllable, but it's different. And that one, we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. I'm not too worried, to be honest. So then, now let's talk about card anatomy. I should, if I'm not lazy, I should have an image up of that card right now. So let's talk about the card. So, in fact, let me I want to actually look at it now, not just in post. Okay, so going left to right across the top, you have weapon, armor, and then some other thing, right? Health, I guess. Those are item slots. That's where you put items on the cards. That's where you put them on the heroes. And those items that you put in those slots will all have their own sort of effect. And again, that will stay with the hero when they die. Then across the bottom, you have 3 slots. You have attack, you have block, and you have health. Health works the same as, say, Hearthstone, where the health is maintained between turns. And, attack is the same as, Hearthstone or Magic or whatever. Basically, it's attack, obviously. And then block is pretty cool. Basically, block is just, it blocks that much damage. I think it blocks that much damage every turn, because I haven't seen block used up via any screenshots. So I think it's kind of like having, if you've played Slay the Spire, which if you're watching this video, you've probably watched me play it. If you played Slay the Spire, it's kind of like that, but it's kind of like having Metallicize, right? It's just a small amount of block every turn. Theoretically, you could also get items that give more block and that sort of thing, and basically they have to break through the block in order to deal damage to the health. And that's the basic card anatomy. On top of that, though, there is one little thing that is above the attack, and that is an ability. All heroes seem to have their own ability, and whether or not it's passive, whether or not it's a spell that you have to draw from your deck, it seems that there's a variety of different ways that the abilities operate. Also, they're all completely different. So that will be another interesting thing about deck building, aside from just the color of the heroes that you're adding to your deck, as well as the effects that they have themselves. Legion Commander is one that I saw, where she has her Moment of Courage, which is a counterattack. So on her card, there's like spikes on the side, which is really cool. And it seems that she deals more damage with attacks, and maybe heals off of it. It's hard to tell. Again, I didn't see any animation of that. I just saw 2 clearly chronologically sequential images, and, in the second one, Elsie has more life, but it's possible she got healed by something else. I'm not sure. And it's very simple, very robust, the card anatomy, and what's so nice about it is none of it has to be hidden, none of it has to be shrunken. It's all visible at all points where the card is. I love it. Next, we have... this one I like. This is just a piece of information that I, have posited. It seems like just about every deck/player archetype is represented in this game. If you don't know much about the base archetype of player, the very base level, there's Timmy, Johnny, and Spike. Timmy likes big, stompy, smashy things. Johnny likes cool, flashy stuff. And then Spike just wants to win. And it seems all 3 are pretty well represented. I saw at least one combo/ramp type card that existed. It's a card that doubles your current gold, which is really cool. And you could theoretically ramp to like ridiculous items from the shop, stuff like that. So there's clearly a combo deck. I'm sure the others are represented. It would be shocking if they weren't. There's one other thing, one other mechanic that I haven't really mentioned yet. Actually, there's 2. I'll mention both. They seem to have been clarified by... Tim Clark from PC Gamer. He did it like a bit of an AMA on Reddit after posting his article. So there's siege damage, and what's the other one called? I don't know. It's something that sounds like it removes people from a place. I don't remember the name of it. I'll remember it at some point, I'm sure. So siege damage is kind of like trample in Magic the Gathering, right? Where it deals... It's basically damage that goes over blocked damage. So theoretically, if you had somebody with like 6 attack and they had 4 siege damage, and you attacked a dude with 2 life, then 4 damage would roll over. I'm not sure if it's strictly added to your attack. Like, I don't know if that 6 plus 4 siege is unblocked, it would deal 10 to a tower. I don't know. All I know is that Tim Clark said it's like trample. And I think that's cool. It's a trample-like mechanic. I think that's neat. And then the other one, which, again, I don't remember the name of, it has something that sounds vaguely like removing somebody from a place. And that one is, like, it just kills somebody, right? It just straight kills. In fact, if I search destroy in this article, it might actually be here. No, it doesn't look like it, but it might actually... Let's see if I can find it in this article. Condemn, there you go. So yeah, there's like there's certain equipments or spells that condemn, and condemn is it kills a unit, right? It just kills. So theoretically, it's like death touch if it's an equipment, right? Where if you were to put it on, I don't know, somebody who's really tanky but doesn't hit very hard. Does Axe hit hard? He can. In this image, he has a claymore, so I'm sure that's bolstering his attack and making it 15. I think I saw him with like pretty low, like 4 or something like that. But if you put something on Axe that gives him condemn on hit, then it's basically like death touch, right? He's this big wall, and anybody he fights with just instantly dies. I think that's cool. And then, just to clarify this one little bit, because you might not be certain based on the way I described it, combat is strictly like the end of a turn in a lane, right? So what you do, every turn starts where it's revealed where stuff is, right? You're like, okay, I see where it is. I see the things. And then you start in the left lane, and you play spells or equip stuff until both people are happy with the way that the board is, right? Or, you know, neither player can play more cards or what have you. And then you end the turn, things clash, damage is dealt, people die, you move to the next lane. Repeat the process. So there's no sort of post-combat tricks, stuff like that. Like in Magic, if it's like, oh, I'll attack with my, 1-2. Opponent's like, block with a 1-4. Haha, and, post-combat, I'll play Shock, 1-4 dies. Nothing like that in this game. If a guy is going to die in combat, right? If a guy is going to die on this turn, you're going to know in combat. Unless there's a card that you can play that affects a different lane than the one you're in. So let's talk about that very briefly. So like I said, the colors of cards, the colors of heroes are relevant, right? You can only play a red card if you have a red hero in the lane you're currently in, okay? However, there are certain cards that can do effects to other lanes. So this is another part of that sort of idea where, oh, if in the third lane, in right lane, I have a black creature chilling out, and then I have, I think Grazing Shot is the card, where it's like deal 1 damage to a target in any lane, something like that. If I have a black creature and it's a black card, in lane 3, right, and then in lane 1, I set it up in such a way where, oh, I've left the opponent, I've left one of their heroes on 1 life. Okay, then you get to lane 3, Grazing Shot the first dude. Right? That sort of thing. And then you can kill him, which is pretty sweet. So there is some level of like post-combat trickery, but it's strictly those kinds of cards, ones that can be played on any lane. How many of those there are, I have no idea. Like I said, 280 plus cards. Nobody really knows all of them, except for probably Richard Garfield and the people who work on the game. So, all that being said, I guess there's one little more tidbit I should talk about. Some meta stuff. So yeah, just like any other game, there will be meta decks, but it's very important that power does not equal rarity. So that basically means that different decks, not all decks will be the same price, which in Hearthstone, sure, they're different costs, but for the most part, it's like, oh, I want to play a good deck. Okay, you're going to spend X dust, effectively, right? And if you want to spend real money to get said dust, it's going to be X dollars, right? That sort of thing. In this game, you could theoretically make a budget deck, some under like $20, right? Theoretically. I mean, if the commons are going to be around 5 to 10 cents, which I think is a reasonable assumption, yeah, you could probably easily make a budget deck for under $20, probably under $10 anyway. Pretty cheap, I have to imagine. And you can make that, and because power level is not tied directly to rarity, there will be some commons that are just very good that everybody wants to play, but they won't be very expensive because they're so common. So that sort of thing. It'll be an economy similar to Magic the Gathering, except easier. So most prices will be lower than Magic because in order to get the cards, it's purely online, purely peer-to-peer. There's no sort of... you don't have to go somewhere. You don't have to buy through like Star City Games or something like that. It's just this person's like, I want to sell this card. Let's look at the market price. That's the market price. Sell it. And then you're like, I want to buy this card. What's the market price? Oh, I'll buy it for that. You're good to go. And to clarify on that, the actual Steam marketplace will be hosting all these cards. So, like I said, 5 cents is like the bottom of Steam marketplace prices in general. I have to imagine common cards are going to be somewhere between 5 cents and maybe the really good ones could be as high as like 50 cents for a single one, but those would be like the really good ones. This is pure speculation on my part. I'm not an economist, so I don't really know, but I've played a lot of Magic. I've looked at Magic prices, and I can probably guess with a decent amount of accuracy, right? It's fair to say that the commons that are not good will be the cheapest possible price, somewhere around 5 cents, and then the most expensive ones I can't even fathom a world where they go above $1, but maybe I'm just incorrect. And then when it comes to actually acquiring cards, there's only one way to do it. You have to buy packs or buy them on the marketplace. Simple as that. Which, I gotta say, is genius from Valve's point of view, because they also get money based on marketplace interactions. So Valve is just like, oh, you want to play a deck? Give me the money, right? They literally just are raking in the currency with this. And in fairness, it's not an anti-consumer way to do it, right? It's not, yeah, Valve is greedy, of course, they're a company, but they're not doing it in a way that actively inhibits players. And the reason that they're not doing any sort of free-to-play grind, no sort of dust system or anything like that, is simply because they want that economy. They really want the economy that Magic the Gathering has, but in a digital way. And honestly, I'm all for it. I think that sounds awesome. I genuinely think that it makes Magic a very healthy game. And also, it's nice that you can just probably at some point just have all the cards, you know? And you could even, you could even buy a card that you want to speculate on. You think that people are underrating a card heavily, so then you just buy a bunch of copies and then turn a profit on that sort of thing. Like, that sounds great. And on top of that, they have guaranteed that there is going to be a limited format, at least one, where you effectively buy in with real money, and then while playing the limited format, you're acquiring cards, whether it be sealed or draft, I don't really know, but you acquire cards, and then those are just your cards. You just keep them. Imagine if in Hearthstone Arena, you just kept the cards. That's pretty much what it is. So that sounds very exciting. I'm very interested to see how the economy works out. And then one more little note. As far as the deck construction itself, I'm not very certain how it works. I don't know if you assemble your item deck. I don't know if the heroes go into your deck. I'm not certain. Based on what I've seen of the demo that the media people played, they don't really know what goes into deck construction either, simply due to the fact that they just choose one of the 2 decks that were, created for the demo. So I don't know if anybody really knows how the deck construction works yet. We just know 40 card decks, 3 of each card, 5 heroes. That's it. So we'll see, I guess, right? We'll see how that turns out. Overall, I'm very excited for the game. I can't get enough of the idea of this game, right? Like, it's a Richard Garfield game. It's also published by Valve. It's an actual card game that has an actual economy, and it's digital. I don't know. It sounds perfect for me, honestly. So I'm very excited. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. Leave a comment. Again, make sure you check out all those articles I mentioned. I think I'm going to put all of them in the description. So go check that shit out, and thanks again for watching. If you like the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all that good shit, and I'll see you guys back, I guess, tomorrow with the Slay the Spire video if you want to watch that. But if not, that's cool too. I'm going to be playing a lot of Artifact when it comes out, or when I get it. Who knows? Maybe I'll get into beta. Please? I'll sacrifice the Snapcaster Mage. I have one. I'll light it on fire. Get me into beta, please.